I recently spent time on the campaign trail with Sam Johnson, the former aide to Columbia Mayor Steve Benjamin, who has been busy these days making his case to the voters on why he should be the one to follow in his mentor's footsteps. In his current role as a consultant for MP Strategy, public relations firm, and an advisor at the prestigious Nexsen Pruet law firm, Sam has been keeping his finger on the pulse of the city. During our discussion, Sam highlighted his plan to improve the quality of life for Columbia residents. We also talked about his readiness to take on a host of critical issues currently facing the city, while hiring a chief public health officer to improve the city's response to the ongoing COVID pandemic is at the top of his list. He also made it clear that he's ready to tackle other tough issues like the lack of affordable housing for working families and addressing the rise of gun violence that currently plagues the city. In talking with Sam, it was apparent that he's given these issues a great deal of thought. He also emphasized that having a plan for the future of Columbia has been a priority for his campaign since day one, and he wants the voters to know that he's ready to help usher the city forward. Sam, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing good, man. It's a pleasure to sit down with you.
Thanks a lot, man. Been trying to sit down with you for a minute. So yesterday was the big day. You officially filed to run for mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. So how does it feel?
It feels great. Born and raised here in Columbia, the product of a Alzheimer's nurse and a truck driver. All right. Parents originally from Fairfield County. My mom from Ridgeway. My dad from Winsboro. Growing up with very humble roots. My dad worked multiple jobs trying to provide. A brilliant man who didn't have much of a formal education. My dad, his work ethic, the things that he taught me, you can't quantify. And my mother, is an amazing person. As an Alzheimer's nurse, someone who was extremely caring. And so to look at my roots, a grandfather with a fourth grade education, somebody who really, wanted the best for his children, and to have a grandson now that's running for mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. You have those moments in your life where you have to stop and you have to take it all in, and you have to appreciate not only where God has brought you, but where He's taking you. And so I'm extremely thankful and blessed for the opportunity to run for mayor here in a city that's given me so much.
Okay. Sam, you worked in the previous administration under Mayor Benjamin, our first African-American mayor of Columbia. You've married not that long ago, basically got a 1-year-old at home, and you just recently graduated from law school. Why now? Why run for mayor now? Why did you feel now was the time?
Well, you say it recently, man. Time flies, right? So I've been at Nexsen Pruet 5 years. Had an opportunity to 6 years. Time flies. When I look at Columbia, and whether it's retaining our talent, whether it's addressing public safety and the challenges that we have there, whether it's focusing on Columbia's growth as a city, more job creation, being able to take Columbia from where we are to where I believe our potential lies. This is a pivotal moment. That I look at the energy that Mayor Benjamin brought to Columbia in 2010, and I see. As someone who played an integral role in his administration, I see where we have to go here in Columbia. And this is such a pivotal moment. I think that I bring something to the table that's very unique. As somebody who is raising a young family in Columbia, I want to make sure that not only my daughter, but all of our children have an opportunity to live up to their God-given potential right here in this city, that Columbia can provide that opportunity. I want to make sure that we have the economic growth that provides opportunity so that they don't have to travel to Timbuktu to live up to their potential, to seek those opportunities. But I also want to make sure that while we have them, while we have our children here in Columbia, that they live in safe neighborhoods, that they know that Columbia is going to be able to protect them. And so that calls for a mayor who's willing to do the work. And as somebody who is from the city, who's born and raised here, who's had some amazing opportunities, not only to work for Mayor Benjamin and to focus on public safety, to help implement body cameras here in the police department, to focus on 21st century policing, and work on some of these critical issues as society has evolved to be able to work hand in hand around public safety, recognizing that before Mayor Benjamin got elected in 2010, the previous administration prior to that, which as I look at this race, as I look at the field, they were unfortunately cutting public safety. We had a police department that was being furloughed. We had firehouses that were being shut down, and that is the exact wrong direction. We can't afford to go in that direction. We have to move forward, and we've got to move forward vigorously here in Columbia. If we're going to make sure that we really move the needle in this city, we need a leader that's going to be able and capable of doing that. The definition of insanity is continue to do the same thing over and over. If we're going to really move that needle, we're going to need fresh ideas. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm running. So because I want to bring some fresh ideas to Columbia that allow us to move the needle.
Okay. Sam, I want to ask you, since working in the last administration, Mayor Benjamin was able to bring a certain level of prosperity and saw the city grow. If you're elected mayor, curious to know what areas of growth in the city would you focus on? And I ask that question because there's certain parts of the city that experience a great bit of growth and renewal.
Yeah. And
there are other parts of the city not so much.
Yeah.
And so what would be your focus in getting other parts of the city to grow and prosper?
Well, I think about when you look over the last few decades of Columbia, and I think specifically back to when Mayor Benjamin was elected, he talked about one Columbia, right? And I think your question gets to the heart of that, which is how do we create one Columbia? How do we make sure that regardless of which area of town that you're talking about, wherever you're standing, has the same level of development happening, the same level of resources happening, and so there, in order to make that happen, in order to accomplish that, we've got to be willing to make sure investment happens across the city. So you have to have an economic development plan that does just that, and so we'll put an economic development plan out that focuses investment across the city, that addresses the needs of each area of the city uniquely, recognizing that if we're going to move the needle across Columbia, for example, as it relates to housing or healthcare, whatever it may be, we're going to have to look at each area in a very unique lens. And so we'll put out a policy that does that. When I look at, for example, our small businesses, we've got to make sure that we are investing in them and giving them the resources that they need. So we're going to put out within our economic development plan something called the Washington Street Plan, which is a area. If you're born and raised here in Columbia, you know that was our Black business district. And so we're going to put out a plan that allows us to create more capacity for our small businesses and minority businesses here in Columbia so that they can grow and expand and conquer the world right here in Columbia. And so having that type of unique effort here in Columbia is what we have to do if we're going to be able to see the type of growth that we want to have happen. And in our economic development plan, we're also going to make sure that we drill down into specific neighborhoods to make sure that they are seeing the type of development and investment that they need to have in order to make sure that resources are available throughout Columbia.
Okay. I want to ask you two questions in particular because I hear a lot of candidates talking about why they're running because we have a great deal. Pretty much the entire city council is going to be up for re-election. We got new blood coming in, and there are a lot of people talking about why they're running.
Yeah.
There are some questions that I'm not hearing people talk in depth about
Yeah.
some serious questions, and we have some serious problems to face as a city. The first serious problem, and I want to know how you would address it, is gun violence in the city and in the county for that matter.
Yeah.
It's out of control. There is a shooting literally almost every day.
Yeah.
What would be your plans in working with public safety? How do we address this issue?
So first, I have to make this distinction. We're the only campaign to put out a public safety plan. In our public safety plan, there's several things that we call for. One of them is for the city to pass an ordinance that takes some of these lost and stolen guns off the street. A number of these shootings that are happening across our city, if you talk to Chief Holbrook or Sheriff Lott, they will tell you they're being perpetrated by guns, by the same gun that are being given to folks over and over again. And so we've got to get these guns off the street. Our ordinance, our public safety plan literally calls for a fine. If your gun is repeatedly being stolen or lost, you got to get you got to pay a fine. You cannot continue to have your gun utilized and victimizing our community. So that's one thing. One of the other thing that we have to do here is we have 90 vacancies within our police department. We've got to make sure that we have a police department that's fully staffed and has the resources that they need in order to make sure that our communities are safe, that our neighborhoods are safe. And so that's something that we have to do. The other thing that we have to do, Mike, is we've got to make sure that we are investing in our police department. So not only do they have the mental health resources and social workers that they need to be able to address some of these issues and challenges that are nuanced. We have to realize that in 2021, the things that we are seeing that happen in our communities are just different, right? We are facing a pandemic, the greatest public health challenge since 1918. So we have to recognize that whether it's mental health, whether it's social workers, we've got to interject those resources into our police department. And then we also have to be willing to address code enforcement. Recognizing that we have so many challenges in our community. We have problem areas and problem houses in our community that we know that we've identified that come up in neighborhood meeting after neighborhood meeting, and so we've got to work as a unit, as a city, to make sure that we clean up our neighborhoods and we continue to do that. So, for example, in our youth and education plan, one of the things that we do, we call for a youth beautification program, making sure that, one, we beautify our neighborhoods and our corridors so that we are able to take pride in them, but then we also get our youth involved, giving them not only something to do, but putting some money in their pocket as well. And so those are the types of common sense solutions that we're bringing to the table that also are fresh ideas, right? And I think, you mentioned the word, some fresh blood. I think that's exactly what we need.
One of the other issues that I want to talk about, for the last couple of months when I drive into the city, the COVID testing site on Bull Street has been empty. In the last couple of weeks, every time that I drive into the city, and including today, the lines for COVID testing are backed up. They're back at it. And when we thought we were toward the end of this pandemic, it turns out that we're not with this variant. The city is facing the same problem other cities across the country is. If you're elected mayor, how would you address this pandemic?
Well, I think one of the things that we've done that distinguishes us is from the very outset of our campaign, we've been knocking on doors, making sure that we get folks in the city, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, knocking on their doors, getting them registered to get the vaccine. And so I think that's the kind of leadership that we need here in Columbia if we're going to move the needle. We've got to get more people vaccinated if we're going to stem the tide of this pandemic. And so we've been blessed to get over 2,000 folks vaccinated through our efforts, recognizing now that we've got to continue that effort, right? We've got to continue to push to get more folks vaccinated here in Columbia. Of course, the chief health officer helps with that, being able to pool those resources and making sure that we are utilizing our resources in the most efficient manner possible.
Can I stop you right there? I heard you mention chief health officer before. Can you explain what that role, what that person would do?
Yeah. So the chief health officer is an idea. Right? There are a number of cities across this country that have implemented one. You look even before the pandemic, cities were implementing a chief health officer, realizing that if our people aren't healthy, we can't have a talented workforce. We can't truly be a safe, healthy, thriving community if our people aren't healthy. And so. Quite frankly, a chief health officer makes sure that the life expectancy in one area of Columbia is the same as the other. It makes sure that we're utilizing the resources that we have here, recognizing that we are downtown Columbia. We have nonprofits and the Lexington Medicals, the Prismas, the now MUSCs right here at our fingertips. And so to have an area like 29203, the worst zip code in the country for amputations due to diabetes, right here in the capital city of South Carolina, 29203, the worst zip code in the country for amputations due to diabetes, is unfathomable. We've got to make sure that we're moving the needle and trying fresh ideas that allow us, with a chief health officer, to make sure that city council is informed, is aware of the data, but then also has someone who's able to make sure that, one, we're tackling a pandemic, but then we're also tackling the pandemics of these healthcare outcomes, whether it's heart disease and stroke, whether it's diabetes, as I just mentioned. We've got to make sure that we're moving the needle here in Columbia. And that's why we've been so passionate about not only pushing this idea and encouraging city council to move forward on it. And for that matter, this is an idea that we presented 3 days into our campaign, 6 months ago. And as we look at the lives that are being impacted by COVID-19 and now this variant, we have to have leadership. And I applaud Mayor Benjamin for moving forward the emergency declaration. Our babies are sacrosanct. We've got to make sure that we keep our children safe. They are the future. And so wearing masks in a classroom is not optional. We have young folks who are under 12 years old who don't have the option of getting a vaccine. And so when we look at COVID-19, something that comes along for them, that unfortunately, we have so many folks who are going to be dealing with lung and kidney issues for the rest of their lives because of the challenges that they've had from this disease. We got to make sure that's not the case with our children. And so I applaud Mayor Benjamin for his leadership there. But we need to make sure that we have that type of leadership going forward.
Okay. One of the other issues I want to ask you, if you have a plan to address, is the housing situation in Columbia, especially in the city. In terms of affordability, the rents in the city has skyrocketed. And it's not that affordable to the average person. In the areas of the city that rent is affordable, it's not necessarily the safest. If you're elected mayor, how would you address the housing situation?
And so I think that's one of those areas that distinguishes me from the field. I have an experience during my time in the mayor's office and even here at Nexsen Pruet of rolling up my sleeves to get projects done. Working as I look at projects like the Point at Elmwood, a wonderful project that brought more housing, more density, more capacity to Columbia. Those are the types of projects that we've got to have happen here in Columbia. And so our economic development plan will spur more housing and will incentivize more housing across the board. Because I think one thing that's an important distinction, Michael, is that we've got to have housing across the board. We got to make sure that people have the ability to live in dignity here in Columbia. And that goes for everybody. So we need more senior housing. We need more workforce housing, which means when you graduate from any of our higher ed institutions, we graduated close to 60,000 students a year. We've got to make sure that when you graduate from any of those higher ed institutions, that you have a place to live. And so for so often, we talk about retaining our talent. Well, you can't retain your talent if there's nowhere for you to live in the city of Columbia. And so we've got to make sure that across the board, whether it's folks who are just graduating and starting off their lives, or we're talking about seniors who deserve to live in dignity because they have contributed so much to our communities, we've got to make sure that we have more housing stock across the board. And when you look at this conversation, there have been multiple task forces and multiple conversations around creating more housing, specifically more affordable housing, over and over again. We've had that conversation. What we have to have now is action. And unfortunately, when I look at this conversation, I'm the only person in this campaign in this election that has the experience of actually getting that conversation done, of creating more housing.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have a two-part question for you. There's a lot of people out there that says Sam's too young to run for mayor right now. So I want you to address that, and at the same time address the future. Mayor Benjamin was able to bring in new industry. That's one of the things that will solve a lot of our issues in terms of affordable housing if people have jobs. So also, being young, being not so new to politics, because you've been around a minute, how would you bring new investment into the city to help this city continue on the trajectory of growth that it's on?
Well, I think, quite frankly, it's an advantage. When I look at this election, I love the dynamics. As someone who has been in the mayor's office, has that experience, has been a city employee, knows what it's like to try to deliver for the citizens of Columbia, having that experience, but then also being able to bring fresh ideas to the table, to have had the opportunity to work on projects like a Bull Street, to look at the opportunities that lay ahead for Columbia. We talk about our future, developing our river, taking advantage of our knowledge economy, and how do we expand those opportunities, make sure that we retain our talent. And then I look at the challenges that are before us, the problems that are before us. I think you need someone who has the ability to bring fresh ideas to the table. And I think that's something that we bring to the table uniquely.
Well, Sam, I'd like to thank you for taking time to sit down and talk with me. And I've asked you quite a few questions. But I'd like to give you the opportunity now. If there's something I haven't asked you, is there anything you'd like to say to the voters of Columbia?
Absolutely. Michael, we touched on it. These are some of the most challenging times that I think any of us have seen in our lifetimes, right? COVID-19, the impact on our economy, so many businesses having to close. And I think about, growing up, I watched my dad, someone who started several businesses, was a serial entrepreneur and a jack of all trades, probably one of the most talented people I've had the pleasure of spending time with. My dad taught me so much. And, I watched him start a janitorial company. Watching him start a trucking company. And I've seen what it's like when those businesses fail. I remember twice in my lifetime. First when I was in the 6th grade. My dad having a trucking company that failed, and us having a house that was foreclosed on, and the challenges there. And I see so many families that unfortunately are struggling because of this pandemic, because of the challenges that we're seeing as we talk about housing and some of the issues, the instability that this time breeds. Knowing what that's like, it's tough. And then we look at the impact of COVID-19 on our families. As we deal with this pandemic, there are families like mine where you've lost grandparents. So I lost both of my paternal grandparents to COVID. Lost my aunt, my mom's sister, to this pandemic. Someone who's young, who's 56 when she passed. And the dynamic. I think one thing that we gloss over is when you lose someone to COVID-19, especially in the protocols that funeral homes had during the height of COVID-19, you didn't have funerals. You had kind of the graveside services, and just the mental toll that has taken, along with the economic impact of this pandemic. And so I want the citizens of Columbia to know, not only do I understand those challenges, I can relate to them. I felt it. And so those are extremely important dynamics of a leader. In order to be able to lead, you've got to know and feel where the people are. And so, as mayor, not only making sure that we're able to come out of this pandemic economically, not only making sure that we're able to deal with the health, the actual physical health challenges of it, but making sure that we're looking holistically at the challenges that are before us, that our families are facing, is something that's going to be critical. The next mayor of Columbia, following this unique time that we're dealing with, has to be able to lead, has to be ready to lead, has to be able to relate.
Sam, thank you for taking time to sit down with me.
Absolutely.